Very warm welcome, everyone, as you join our virtual space. As always, we'll wait just a quick minute to allow everyone to enter and get settled, make any adjustments they need to their screens. Wow, great to see so many people from different regions. People from UAE, Egypt. You can see people from London. I can see Ireland. I can see Asia. A few Australians, which is great. Just wait a quick minute, wait till everyone gets settled. Okay, let's kickstart our session. Good afternoon and good evening, and thank you for joining this really important conversation. Today's discussion is focused on the practical and tangible steps that schools can take as you navigate the really powerful but complex area of AI as part of your digital strategies in your schools. We really want to break through the conceptual and theoretical discussions as that's dominated the conversations over the past few years. We want you to walk away with some real key strategies and some clear actions and opportunities. My name is Grant Vanderkruk. I'm the CEO of Schoolbox, and I'll be guiding you through today's session. I'll be soon joined by some incredible panelists. Most of you would know who they are before, key people and key industry experts whose mission it is to support you as school leaders every day. Before we get started introducing our guests, just wanted to let you know a little bit more about today's session. I'll be framing three sort of key questions that will help frame our discussion and help guide the conversation to hopefully promote more questions and conversations to be an iterative and meaningful discussion. You all have the opportunity to submit questions during the session. There is a Q&A session on the Zoom setting session. You might need to hit the more button, but in the Q&A, if you have specific questions for our panelists or our guests, please address it to them and we will see them come through in the background. We'll try our best to cover as many as we can, but if we're unable to cover all your questions, we will be compiling them with a list and creating answers for you, and then sending that out to everyone post this session. So you'll get your answers and everyone else's questions and answers as well. If you would like to engage any of the members, particularly, we'll share all their contact details at the end so that you can continue rich conversations with any of our specialists in this conversation today. I'll also ask you to have your mobile phones ready. We'll have a section soon for audience participation, and that will be coming in a few minutes. But now it is my great pleasure to introduce our first guest. Welcome Deborah Forsyth to help kickstart our session. Deborah is the CEO of BSME, British Schools in the Middle East, an organisation that supports British education across the region, providing opportunities to connect, to develop, share, practice and inspire innovation. I've asked Deb to come on today to kickstart our session and give a bit of insight from the many BSE members and give us a really strong message to start with. So over to you, Deb.
Thanks for the very warm welcome, Grant. It's lovely to be here. And it's a real pleasure for BSME to be partnering with Schoolbox, yourselves, and Teach Middle East on today's Leadership Focus webinar, Designing Your School's AI Architecture. What a wonderful title. For those who maybe aren't familiar with BSME, British Schools in the Middle East, we are a professional membership organisation supporting British curriculum schools across the Middle East and North Africa. We work with over 180 member schools across 10 countries, and those schools educate about 128,000 students, so quite a responsibility there. We also collaborate with over 130 partner members. Those partner members provide educational services, resources and tools to our school community, and we're very pleased to include Schoolbox amongst our key partner members. Our mission at BSME is to promote excellence in international education, and we do this through collegiality, collaboration, communication and innovations, which are part of our key culture. We serve students, we strengthen schools, and we support staff through our provision of professional development, safeguarding support, collaborative events, and strategic guidance on some of the key challenges that are facing schools in our region at the moment. And I have to say, one of those key challenges, perhaps the most rapidly evolving one that we've seen in recent years, is what we're here to discuss today, the role of artificial intelligence in education. AI is no longer a future consideration for schools. It's here, it's now, and it's appearing in every facet of school life, from the classroom to wellbeing support, from administrative operations to strategic planning. In many cases, it's arriving faster than our leadership teams can establish clear frameworks for its use, and that's a real challenge for schools. And that is precisely what the panel will be addressing today. Each AI tool that we look at comes into our school with its own behaviours, its own assumptions, and its own data practices. And if we don't have strategic oversight, our schools risk having a fragmented, reactive approach that maybe doesn't align with their values, their educational philosophies, and in fact, our duty of care to staff and students. So the question isn't whether AI will be part of our schools. It already is, we know this. The question is, how do we guide it strategically, intentionally, and in a way that really reflects what our schools truly stand for? I'm looking forward to some valuable insights from the panelists today to help move our schools forward on their AI integration journeys. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you now, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Deb. Really appreciate that. We've been connected for many years now, and I really appreciate the work that BSME does for partners like us, but for the industry as a whole. As a not-for-profit, you're here to serve the industry. As you said, it's here, it's now, whether you like it or not. The only thing I'll add to that is we're still so much at the start of this journey in technology. And a great quote I heard the other day was, "It's at its worst." AI is at its worst right now. It's only going to get better, more powerful, but also more complex. So your points are well made. So I really appreciate that insight and being a part of our session today. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay. Well, let's start bringing our panelists in onto the virtual stage to kickstart the further conversation. A really warm welcome to Lisa Grace Wilson, Rita Bateson and Andrew Norwood. Thanks again for being part of our discussion today. Maybe starting with you, Lisa, maybe for the audience that don't know you, which I doubt there'll be too many, a very quick introduction to you and your role in the education landscape, please.
Thank you so much, Grant, and thank you guys for having me on this webinar. My name is Lisa Grace Wilson. I'm the editorial director of Teach Middle East. I'm a former school leader in the region. I've been in the UAE for what now looks like 16 years, working in government, working in education. But now I edit Teach Middle East, which is the largest platform for educators here in the region. And we do several things: publications, events, podcasts, you name it, we do it, but all with one aim: to connect, develop, and empower educators. We also have the AI in Education Summit, which is in its second year this year and will take place in April. And what it did was it led my team and I down a rabbit hole of understanding what the AI in education landscape looks like across this region as we created that event, and also as we seek to help educators grapple with this big topic. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Lisa. Rita, over to you.
Thank you so much, Grant. I'm also delighted to be with you today. My name is Rita Bateson, and as you can hear from my accent, probably I'm in Ireland, but I'm an experienced British and international school educator, also working at the IB for a long time. But now I work with international schools, providing bespoke professional development in terms of AI. We have a full AI curriculum from 3 to 18, and also now AI certification for schools. So I've seen all of the positive and negative aspects in many schools globally, and it's interesting to carry those best practices from school to school. So I'm glad to speak to you all today about that and how we can build that architecture with robust safety, but also with optimistic innovation.
Thanks, Rita. Such an important role that you have in the industry. Really appreciate you being a part of it today. And Andrew.
Hi, yes, very excited to be here today and part of this conversation. So my name's Andrew Norwood. I've been an educator for 20 years. Most recently, I've had roles as Director of Digital Learning over at a school in South Australia, 4,500 students over 5 campuses. I've been on the exec of an independent school in England as Director of Digital Strategy, so leading on not only digital learning but also the IT function of that school as well. So I've had experience of looking at digital tools and looking at strategy for making sure they have the best possible impact in education. And now my role is as educational consultant for Schoolbox. And that role involves being based here in Dubai and supporting our schools to make sure that they're able to capitalize on the Schoolbox platform. So Schoolbox is a learning management system, communication and pastoral care platform, and we're thinking thoughtfully about how we can leverage AI and ensure that schools can take a strategic approach. And I'm excited to be part of this conversation and drive that forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, why don't we get into our first question? Each of you are support leaders, teachers, and schools more broadly. You're all closely connected to what's happening within the international school and education as a whole at a deep level every day. And in particular, the adoption and spread of AI. So let's start to get an understanding of what you're seeing. What are you seeing right now in your roles within many of the schools and the commentary that you're having? What are you seeing? What's the latest that you can provide to our audience in terms of successes, issues, but also just some really clear intelligence of what's happening in schools? We might start off with you, please, Lisa, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. As you were saying that, I thought intelligence is across the region. What we've been observing is that there's a real appetite for the adoption of AI within education. Now, where we become kind of unstuck, if you like, is that different schools are at different stages in this adoption journey. There are schools that have got real champions for AI and they are gung-ho and they're going at it. The government has made itself clear that it wants an AI strategy implemented across education. Now, what that looks like on the ground is that some schools are further along and others are still just kind of looking at where to start. What we've also noticed across the region as well is that schools are looking less at how they can use AI with the children and more how they can use it in administration and with the teachers, etc. So there is such a mix. And there are also those that are more focused on tools, and we can talk about that. But to answer your question in short, Grant, it is a big spectrum of where schools are. Some are nowhere on the spectrum and some are way ahead on that spectrum.
Yes, yeah, really inconsistent, right? There's it's certainly a journey. Some are starting the journey, some are making a decision potentially to start a journey, but some are really going forward. I might just ask, Lisa, are you from a perspective of those schools perhaps that are really leaping into it and going gung-ho, as you say. Is that coming from leadership in particular, or is that perhaps more from a teacher perspective?
That is such a fabulous question. So we did some reading into this and some talking to people. It is normally not coming from leadership. What tends to happen, especially last year when we hosted the first AI summit, it was the people who are first adopters. You have those people in schools that are able to latch onto technology and they are able to start flying the flag quite easily. And so what happens is they are the ones that are leading the charge and then helping their leadership in turn to develop some kind of strategy and work around AI. So we find that every school that is gung-ho, so to speak, has one or two champions that are pushing the AI agenda in the school, and it's normally not the leadership.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I don't have a comeback for that right now, but it sort of matches a little bit what we're seeing as well. Rita, from an ethical lens and what Lisa just said, are you seeing similar from a teacher perspective, and the engagements that you are a part of? Where is that more coming from?
I really agree with Lisa there in terms of Deborah said fragmentation earlier. I think that's a great word to use in terms of both school versus school, but also within schools too. There are pockets of excellent practice in all of the schools that we work with. And then there's a lack of joined up thinking, of course. So we identified very early that leaders really need to understand it. They feel that they don't have time to engage maybe with the capabilities or switching from model to model or understanding all of the intricacies, but they really do have to have a wide angled lens and they have to understand that ethically we're seeing, I think, around about 7 or 8 trends in schools at the moment. In almost all schools, there will be a various distribution of these things. There are people who are worried about the ethical side in terms of intellectual property or consent. We even have kids who are refusing to use it occasionally for environmental reasons. So we're seeing that there is kind of an AI fatigue in some parts of the school, which is interesting. We're also seeing under and overuse being a problem, with some students now also complaining about teacher use, either teacher underuse or overuse or hypocrisy, which is really interesting. And that needs to be dealt with systems wide. We also have seen an increased friction between teacher and students in terms of trust and transparency. We know assessment is a big, big deal in AI, so that's also been a real ethical consideration. And now, of course, we see the whole worry about curriculum and assessment. What does it mean for cognitive dependency? What does it mean for companionship dependency? We're seeing a safeguarding and well-being concern as well. And I think all of those concerns have to be balanced within schools. And then we have to think about the incredible use cases where AI is unlocking levels of service we could never give to students before and never dream of giving to students before. So our underserved communities, our kids who are underachieving and underperforming. So how do we take all of those positive benefits and make sure that we protect ourselves? As we've worked with leaders and increasingly with teachers too, we found that many schools where they think they are and where they actually are very different. They may have a real gap between their understanding of the 6 risks that exist. They might be focused on the financial risk and not be thinking about the reputational risk. They may not have thought about the environmental risk. And they may not have thought about the risk of doing nothing, which is also a huge, huge concern. And especially in the region where you're in, where the push is for adoption, we don't want reckless adoption. We want really strategic, thoughtful AI use cases and data driven decisions about those ones that do not work and that are going to waste people's time or build dependency. So it's a very complex picture. But I think in terms of ethics, thinking we always have camps within schools, those who are excited, early adopters, really fixated on AI literacy. And then we have maybe the doomsters who are focused on the AI ethics. And I think effective school architecture and systems involve both of those things, a real balance between ethics and literacy. And that's one of the things that I think we see the most progress and the most positive approaches when everybody understands that there is a variety of opinions, all of them valid, and all of them eventually you need to move on from that eternal argument. We need to get this done. We need to protect people. We need to accelerate learning. And we need to, as Lisa said, make use of the administrative efficiency. That's an incredible one for teachers who we love a good moan, don't we? We love moaning about how much we have to do. If AI could genuinely offload things and not cognitively offload them, that's all for the benefit of schools.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things that just resonated when Lisa, you talked about for admin. I I went straight to not the administrative requirements of teachers, but I was thinking the business part of the school too. When we talk about technology in school and AI in school, well, maybe it's just natural because we're serving educators, but there's a business service that's available there as well, which I can't say that we've had a lot of those conversations, but I'm also, it's clear that that's not a part of it, hasn't been part of the discussions that I've heard of, which is really interesting. Fragmentation, inconsistency is a big words that we're hearing also at the moment. How do we harness the those leading in our school, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a leader, or whether it's a student? How do we harness their enthusiasm, curiosity, skill set, but then disseminate that across the school so there is some level of consistency? I'm not proposing any more answers, but it brings more questions to why we're having these discussions, and as Andrew said before, why we are taking a very deliberate approach to AI. On that front, Andrew, what are the sort of key things that you're seeing in your work with those partner schools of Schoolbox, those that aren't, the conversations that you have at the coalface, but also at conferences when we're meeting lots of schools?
Look, I would echo, seeing the rapid adoption of AI and just talking to the point that I think both Lisa and Rita made about teachers really driving that adoption and sometimes leadership getting left behind a little bit. As someone who's been in a position where it was my responsibility to set the strategic direction, it's difficult sometimes to get that balance of enabling teachers to investigate and explore and be enthusiastic, but also be mindful of the priorities of the school and just it's a challenging position for school leaders to be in, but absolutely the rapid adoption of AI. I looked at a Microsoft survey recently. The AI usage in education has jumped from 45% in 2023 to 86% in 2024, which was the highest jump across that year of all industries. So that says quite a lot, and it would be even higher now. Some schools, and even recently, I've had a conversation with schools that have said, actually, we're still deciding if it's a good idea or whether it's a fad and whether it will go away. So, as Lisa was saying, schools are in this sort of these very different stages of decision making here. Some schools are really they're thinking that they're pursuing innovation, but they're doing that by adopting many single purpose AI tools, narrowly focused, and exactly that, a tool to do a specific job. So they're not really thinking of AI as a cohesive system and thinking about how these things could be connected. All of these systems are disparate. And so leadership really have a lack of visibility on many occasions of where AI is in use, where the data from that AI is going, what models are being used. So it's a challenging situation for schools at the moment who are wrestling with this particular technology. And yeah, I think there's a lot of conversation to be had, which I'm sure we will, about how we can move into a more sort of strategic way of approaching this.
Wow, strong start. Any last comments before we move on to the next section?
So I wanted to just point something out that we've noticed when we were doing some research into this. There is a massive divide between the schools that are going ahead with training and having those champions, etc. We've noticed in our research that it also has implications for the school fee status of that school. Premium schools, super premium schools tend to have the resources to invest in the training, etc. And so your mid-tier and lower tier schools are still, many of them, playing catch up because they're deciding where this resource is best spent. even though that there are lots of free resources out there. So I've noticed that subtle disparity, and I don't know why that is, but it's there.
Perhaps that's capability, and perhaps that's the um, reset of priorities at times as well from where that funding is. Schools have got a massive job, a juggle of where they put their investment, right? Particularly for those sort of, as you say, the sort of second and third tier fee paying schools, right? Let's get on to the next stage, and we're just going to pause from a panel perspective. What we're wanting to do now is just get a little bit of insight from our audience, and to see whether what we've sort of mentioned is happening in your schools. So if everyone can get your mobile phones ready, open up your camera. I'm going to ask you to scan a QR code, a couple of QR codes in a minute. So we want to ask you a couple of questions, and we're going to get some live data as we go in to see how this is for you. So our first question will be around your confidence about the visibility on the AI tools that are happening across your school. And so phones ready. Please scan that QR code and answer this question. You'll get one of 4 options there. We'll get the live data coming through. But the question again, are you confident, or how confident are you that you have full visibility on the AI tools that are being used across your school? If you're unsure, please feel free to put unsure. How confident are you that you've got the visibility? We'll give it another 10 seconds for those answers to come through. I won't lie, I thought we'd get a lot more unsure in this question, which is great that we're getting that rich answer. All right, 5 more seconds. Keep adding to it as we keep talking about this. What's your Andrew? What's your initial take on the results coming through?
Look, I've been in this position, and I would have put not confident. And I had full visibility over the IT systems, over all of the data going through the firewalls, and still the challenge remains of understanding all of those different tools that are being used, not only by teachers but students as well. Because as much as you try, the challenge is to try and narrow down the tools that are being used. I certainly took the approach of trying to move towards a more managed approach and to actually issue directives around the AI tools that we should be using. But again, that's, how do you actually have confidence in that actually happening? And yeah, it's a challenge. So absolutely would expect this kind of spread of answer here.
Rita, does this surprise you?
You know what it doesn't? It takes me back to my days as a head of school, and as Andrew said, you empower and you hold accountable your staff members. And I always trusted my IT team to understand IT really well. AI is a brand new thing then on top of everything else. It's embedded. There's stealth AI in so many tools, and it's been interesting in the work that we do with schools. It's very easy for people to come in and point at the obvious and worry you or excite you. It's the next step. It's the supports that people need. One of the most popular resources that we've supplied to schools has been a vendor due diligence check or a use case registry or just something simple templated to get them started, to get a handle on the situation.
Yeah.
Because quite often we find that the school leaders don't know what they don't know. And of course, that's natural. And that's the thing that kept me up at night as a school head.
Yeah.
So I think that's a totally expected response, although my heart goes out to the people who are in that position of discomfort. We've all been there.
Do we think that this is a different situation, given that I'm sure the vast majority of teachers will have ChatGPT or some sort of functionality on their personal device that it's quite quick and easy to quickly jump on there, to answer a question to utilize in some way through their normal teaching day, versus any other functionality that's not really been, you've either got school supplied systems, whereas this is quite democratized, isn't it, from a personal perspective? Perhaps that's a key change and a key difference with, I'm not sure there's a lot of other apps that you are free and that are meaningful for teachers, that they can use without the school's knowledge or authority.
The barrier to access these technologies is so low and it's so friction free that I think you're absolutely right. It's very leaky in terms of a school leadership perspective because under certain legislation, for example, in the EU, I as a school leader are now responsible for every application of AI in the building and when my staff and students are at home. That's an incredible order, tall order sometimes. So yeah, absolutely. I think the confidence comes from awareness, information, and engagement with the tech. And school leaders often don't have time for one, never mind all three of those things. So it's a very interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to our next question for our audience. Phones at the ready as well. We want to sort of understand, for those that have some level of confidence, or even if you're not confident, how many AI tools or licenses does your school use, whether it's free or paid? So this includes what you may believe teachers are using from personal accounts, as well as your school's accounts that you provide. How many tools do you think, if you do a quick count, that are being used at your school? Even if you don't have full visibility, I think that you can make a decent guess from this at this level. Oh, a clear leader straight away. That's interesting, isn't it? What
That's
this
wish
says
we'd
to
had a
me that
10
there's
plus
there's
there.
some that have just got a very few or a lot. There's not a lot of middle ground there.
And I think it's important to note what Rita was saying there about the fact that sometimes, in fact, on many occasions, you don't know AI is being used. A platform isn't explicitly an AI tool necessarily. So tools that, we're familiar with, even from sort of Microsoft Word and things like that, where people might not inherently think that AI is in use. More increasingly, it is.
Rita, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's a really good point because we have some schools, for example, who are paying for ChatGPT Pro licenses and they're Gemini's, they're Google schools, and they're not really aware of what's already within their tech stack or their ecosystems. They're really underutilizing the power of their fingertips and showing a real misunderstanding of what's available to them and the different models, the comparisons, the benefits accordingly. It's really interesting to know that schools themselves feel like the whole fragmented ecosystem is overwhelming.
Yeah. Andrew,
Yeah,
this supports what you said earlier in terms of what you're seeing in schools, the quick adoption of singular tools for a singular particular problem. Vendors play a big role in this too. There's so many opportunities, and I'm sure there's lots of selling out there to teachers and others, right? And yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Wonderful, great, grab it. But the collective within a school then starts to build up, and you get the disparate use of all these different tools without real strategic thought and adoption. Lisa, over to you.
yeah, I was saying the problem also comes in when you've been using a program in your school for years and years, and then that company now adds AI in as an additional feature, and you're not even aware that that's what's happened. And so you're carrying on using it, and now it's got AI capabilities, it's using your data differently, it's sending your data to different places. Nobody has bothered to read the fine print. And guess what? It's another AI tool, but you didn't buy it like that years ago.
No, you should always have permission for that. That's our stance. That always should be opt-in, not surprise. From our perspective, we do need to move on, but I did not expect that. I thought it would be a lot less than that, but that is pretty profound. Okay, let's move on to our second question. So we've established there's disparity of systems. We've established that there's lots of uptake, but also not a lot of uptake. We've established that teachers are more likely to lead the adoption and use within a school more so than leaders. I guess my second key question is all of these things that we've sort of been talking about. What are the real impacts of these things that we're seeing? What are the real tangible impacts that we've seen happen within the school environment right now? Rita, I'll start with you.
There are probably four that I'd love to highlight. The first one, I guess, is that friction I mentioned earlier on, in that the last set of reports that went out, the people who used AI-enabled report writing found a massive improvement in terms of the speed at which they could write reports, the clarity of the language that they used, the error checking. Teachers were on the whole very pleased with it, particularly those people who are writing in a language that isn't their own. They were really pleased to have that kind of benefit or to have that acceleration of their workload. The problem was the number of parents and students who were really upset by it, who felt that the reports were impersonal, they were generic, they all sounded the same, they all sounded like AI. So we have had some reports from schools of, parents who were disgruntled and unhappy about over usage of AI in terms of reporting and showing that they know their students well. From the teacher perspective, I think a really interesting impact that I've seen is the number of teachers who will tell me that the equivalent of their Slack channels, their Microsoft Team chats, their Google chats, they've all gone silent as students reach for AI for a first answer. And I think that they often, with people who are worried about AI, this is one of their main concerns. They're worried about the human to human interaction in terms of socially constructed learning. They want students to reach for another student, to reach for the teacher, and the convenience of AI is sometimes blocking that. So that's something very important that we embed into our AI literacy and our AI ethics all the time, that connection, that human dependency, that independence of thought. I think that's probably a second thing I'd mention. And then maybe I think in terms of the last one, I think in terms of positive unlocks, the number of rapid deployment of ideas, the speed at which schools are able to take and build a strategy with us that would have taken months or sometimes weeks, we can do with them in a day or two. They can do independently in a day or two. And then AI can agentify or, make certain workflows less important. And I think that's really positive for schools to be able to, if Cambridge or the IB changes the curriculum overnight, you could theoretically put your materials in and modify them and update them overnight. That's an incredible power that we've never had before as educators. So that's hugely beneficial. But all of those things come with a cost. They come with a cost of motivation and engagement and insight and sometimes wisdom. And schools sometimes it's fascinating the number of schools who say, just tell me what to do and we'll do it. And then I can relax. This kind of this anxiety or fatigue around competing motivations and different advice and what to worry about next. I think that's a real definite impact on the well-being of a school, the biorhythm of a school, the interpersonal relationships, all of those things I think I've seen and heard from all of the schools we work with.
Yeah, wow. That's a really interesting thing that all the other chat channels that students have gone silent.
Yeah. Yeah, compared to when we had the pandemic, when they were pinging and we were really overwhelmed by how loud and how noisy and how kind of constant they were. Teachers, for the first time, have told me they miss that. They miss that interaction. They miss being asked.
There was once a complaint and a real fear around collaboration online rather than face to face, and now that's moved to that next step. That's really interesting. Lisa, what are some of the big impacts that you're seeing?
I think a few things that we're noticing. One is that teachers are able to do things a lot faster in terms of adapting their lesson plans, in terms of spinning up resources for lessons. These things used to be very manual. You want to do a quiz, you'll have to sit and figure out the questions and the answers and the notes for the students to help them prepare. Now you can put all of that into an AI chatbot and you can get that out in seconds, right? But I also think without sounding like a dinosaur, I think it's zapping creativity somewhat, and it's making things a little bit samey, because the models are producing very similar outputs, and people are not taking the time to manually modify them in a way that makes them personal. So things are becoming very same. And even my own children are saying, oh, this teacher put that in. I knew it was AI when they gave it to me. And I was like, see, we run that risk even with our young people of coming off hypocritical, as Rita was saying, because they're now recognizing it. And so one of the real impacts and one of the trends that we're noticing is that it's depersonalizing some of the things that we hold deeply personal, like what Rita was talking about in terms of report writing, in terms of feedback on your work from your teachers. Now AI is doing some of the marking, and so you're getting generic comments rather than comments that are coming from a place of knowledge of a teacher knowing how hard you tried, what progress you've made, and commenting on that. And there is also another impact, and that is the over reliance on tools. There is a tool now for everything. And you had said something earlier, Grant, when you were talking about the fact that you didn't see it being used a lot by administrators and maybe the school strategy planners. And I'll tell you why. The reason is because the people who are developing tools aren't yet doing it for that segment of the market. Everybody's gone after the student segment. And so it's now in all the tools that are student facing, and not admin facing. And so one of the impact is that we are probably going to overuse it for student facing tasks, and we will end up, maybe, I can't say for sure, desensitizing our students.
A really good point. I mean, in terms of the administrative tools and all the tools that we use as a business, we are supplied with, I don't like to use the word, but corporate products, where schools don't necessarily take on corporate products for education, even in the administrative area. And so they're not forced yet to innovate and to bring that in. That's a really good point. Andrew, we've discussed this at length. Would love for you to share your thoughts with our audience as well.
Well, I suppose I take hopefully add to that with a bit of a more technological lens. So disparate systems, surface level training, because you've got to train on so many different platforms. It's very difficult to build in that professional learning time for teachers to be able to upskill in these different tools. You've got complex management of many different applications across the school. You really in industry we call it the ed stack of the schools. You know, they're increasing their ed stack, which increases complexity. It's more difficult to manage systems like that. You've then got systems where data, it's not flowing between those systems. So if you do want to leverage AI, you might have some of your documentation stored in a particular platform. You might be using AI in another platform, and it can't actually use that data. It can't ground that data, ground that AI in the data that's owned by the school. So you're not able to provide the best possible impact of using that particular technology. And then the students and the parents, they've got to wrestle with using a multitude of different applications. They get UI fatigue, so user interface fatigue. They see all sorts of different user interfaces, and it's just too much. The cognitive load is increased, and it's too difficult to understand those, and people just switch off when you put them in that kind of situation. And when you've got a lack of transparency, it is very difficult to understand for what purpose AI is being used across the school. Security concerns increase, and you've got ethical risks to consider as well. So this approach, is really not conducive to best practice when it comes to AI.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positive impact, as you started to talk about, Lisa, in areas that never existed, and this is what we're all wanting, and this is what we're all investing in. But it is laced with equal and opposite impacts, and some and many that aren't really being considered at that time. And, you know, as I said at the start, we're at the start of the AI journey, even though it's been there for 2 or 3 years in its realistically for schools, we're really at the start of it. And so hoping this conversation will allow people to fix or change strategy as a way to get a more strategic pathway. Let's get to our third question. This is really the meaty question, and this is why I think most people are on this webinar. I want to talk about what are the key steps. What are the key things that schools can do right now? The tangible, the practical activities and actions that they can complete right now in schools. What are the things they can think about, and what are the things they can do to avoid the issues and the impacts that we've talked about, increase the positive impact, but also minimize the effect into the future? Andrew, I might start with you.
Thanks, Grant. So first of all, complete an audit of your AI tools. I'd be jumping on the resource I think Rita mentioned earlier to give a bit of structure around that. But I'd really be encouraging schools to look at how are those tools being used, where is the data that's being fed into those tools being stored, what is the data that you're feeding into those tools training? Is it training the AI models that are being used? And what's it costing? What's the actual cost to that? Secondly, I think make sure you're increasing your AI literacy and training opportunities for staff. I know it's a crowded market when it comes to finding time for professional learning, and I noticed that around the SLT table, we were all competing for our various topics, but I would really encourage the increased opportunity for teachers to explore and really start to understand how this technology works. And something that's quite close to our hearts as Schoolbox is think about how you can deploy your own AI model. Now, that might sound a bit far-fetched, but that's absolutely the approach we take at Schoolbox. So we don't actually have our own AI service. We provide a lot of AI functionality within our platform to support communication, learning opportunities, but we employ a bring your own AI approach. So we ask the schools to use one of their maybe existing platforms, Microsoft, OpenAI, to actually deploy a model, and then we leverage that. Now, the benefits of that approach, first of all, you control that model, you control the scaffolding of that model, any guardrails that need to be put around it. You control the cost. You've got one vendor, one cost. It really does enable you to take a strategic approach because you are in control of the AI services that are being used for the platforms that you are using to deliver, whether that be learning or administrative effects. So I'd really encourage schools to explore that particular approach. It can help you maintain your governance. You'll then have visibility over what's occurring within that particular AI model. And we encourage schools to contextualize that, and especially in the market we're talking in now, making sure that the output from that AI is appropriate. Now, it's not always going to be fail-safe, but if you can start to put your own guardrails in, you can start to ensure that at least the AI is leaning towards an approach that you feel is most appropriate for your school. And then you can start to leverage your own school's data. And when you start doing that, that's really the golden moment of AI strategy, is when you can start to ground your own model in your own data to provide services. So I'd be challenging vendors. I'd be challenging vendors to actually utilize the AI that you want to use in the services that they're looking to provide.
That's a really good point, Andrew. And as you said, this might seem far-fetched, but this is happening in industry. Okay, this is happening in industry. It's happening in our business where an AI tool is being adopted and it's being plugged into several of the services to create, and we're able to dictate what data that's being fed, so it can be fed into a lot of different areas. It's starting to happen in education. For those that have seen what Cognito have announced over recent weeks and months, that they are adopting an AI model that they are plugging into their systems. So this isn't so far-fetched from an education perspective. This is happening right now. And the future of AI, as we see it, the next horizon, over this next 2 or 3 years, is organizations will own their own model. They'll be leveraging an AI supply, but they'll leveraging their own model to plug into their own systems and their own data. So it's a much more effective, as Andrew explained. Rita, a couple of points of what are the key things that schools can do right now?
I think Andrew covered quite a lot of the governance things that I would have referenced. So, upskilling your teachers, embedding your students, and modeling best practice for them. All of those are really important. He mentioned, the resources that support us through that process. And here I have to kind of congratulate and thank Schoolbox for your position on this school agency. I think it is past the point of now where schools can take some of that control back. I think if I were to say one thing, it's to make sure that you have a mission and a vision in terms of your AI implementation. What are we doing this for? Is it enriching our classrooms? Is it serving our students in a way we couldn't before? Or is it reducing productive struggle in kids? Is it giving them opportunities to become dependent or become lazy or to anthropomorphize this AI? There's so many things. So if schools could start to use it with purpose and intention and much more critically, I think that would be really good. One of the processes that we go with schools is that we ask them to deliberate before we reach for AI to protect cognition and creativity and all of those things we worry about as educators. And then if we determine it is a valid use case, then by all means, let's use AI for this and then let's evaluate afterwards. Software engineers evaluate software. We should be doing the same in terms of AI impact on education. And then if we think forward to what jobs and what future careers these students are going to have, we also need to simultaneously be thinking about a post AI landscape where students perhaps their unique originality and their I guess their creativity will be really important as AI can do all of the functional things and suddenly world building will be really important or unique niche knowledge will be really important. So we have short-term goals and then we have long-term needs of our students too. So it's a lot to take on. I'm very cognizant of that. But I think if we can continue to empower a school agency, that will trickle down. The governance will give teacher agency, the teacher modelling can honour student agency. And I think that's really important in our schools. But again, we need the tools, the structures, and the trust in people to know who's well motivated in this delivery. You say AI is being embedded everywhere. I think that's absolutely true. And which vendors do we trust? Which educational strategy will actually pay off in the long term? How do we protect and develop critical thinking? There's 1,001 questions, but I think the next practical, tangible step will be asking ourselves why. Why are we using this AI tool? And if we decide we are going to use it, have we evaluated and reflected after that use? And then I think we can start to bend the curve or the arc of where we're going in the negative side back towards the positive uses.
I'm hearing, Rita, I'm hearing a very simple message. Leaders catch up to your teachers and go past them, right? Very, very simple message, and we concur with that. Lisa, round us off for this question, please.
I think one of the best things you can do is just go and find out what's being used. Just survey your school, find out what are people using and why are they using it. And then once you have that data, then bring everyone together and figure out what do we really need to use and why do we need to use it. And then we can touch on what Rita talks about is, okay, this is what we're going to use. What are the ethical and safety implications of all these tools? Let's just start there.
Great start. Got to start somewhere, right? Rita, one of our questions that has come through from the audience, I'd like to pose this to you. AI, it's a big investment and in particular financial. In terms of professional development, in terms of training that's hands-on, what's your best advice for low cost or free services that's available to schools right now that they can get their hands on?
Really difficult question for a PD provider
Does
to
it
answer,
does it
although
does it
without
exist?
recommending their own. I think, yes, there are three things that I could say about that, and I'll try and keep it quick. One, we do offer a sustainable AI use course for free to everybody. So, because we are so committed to the energy demand and requirement of AI and how we can minimize that. So, that's certainly something we can share, and it touches on AI ethics. Another thing that we've done in the plan is that we have done a landscape scan. So, we have a report of what's available out there for free because there's some excellent things, but they're very disconnected. So you could take certain parts of Common Sense Media, for example, and marry it with Google AI and put together some of the Claude trainings, for example, and you could patch together a pretty comprehensive, or at least it would get you to the first stage of development. So if that's useful, I'd be happy to share that with the mail out with the questions that you're sending out. I'd be happy to share that. It will give kind of a green, amber, red light on certain courses. It's scanning of what's available for free because we're educationalists, right? I was once the budget holder, so I know how you have to spin out those budgets for training. So, and the last thing then I would say is that, as Lisa just mentioned, if that use case registry document is useful, I'd like to share that too. It does build in the risk assessments, so hopefully we'll give schools a leg up or a head start on being able to breathe again in terms of the legal side or the reputational side. And
Yeah.
then, as Lisa said, it'll give them some time to go deeper and think about what we have, what do we need, what are we doing with this. It should hopefully take away some of that development time. So those are the things, but I think if I could share those. If they wanted a specific recommendation, I have not yet finished the Google course that they've just released. So ask me again in a week. But for the time being, I'd be happy to share. And then if they're looking for the next step up, low cost, we have courses on AI and ethics, differentiated instruction, AI strategy for leaders, all of those things if possible. And actually, interestingly enough, your conversation reminded me we're about to finish AI for school admissions departments and AI for marketing departments within international schools because they have very different needs to traditional marketing. So those are also going to be available in the coming weeks with AI for well-being. And that's the end of my pitch, I promise.
Yeah, fantastic. I really obviously Ablana are leaders in this space. There's so many resources that they can tap into. Reaching out to Rita, looking on their website, and there'll be plenty there and more to come. I really, Andrew, one of the things that just quickly resonated as you were talking about that, and it's a message that I've had to face over the last sort of 18 months, leading a tech company now in the AI space, is learn how it works. You don't have to be technical. You do not have to have a computer science degree to learn how AI works. Use AI to teach you how it works. Getting a little bit of a fundamental piece of knowledge will help. I really believe a bonus question that I'll ask in a sec, but will really help understand and not outsource your AI strategy to many vendors. It will help you take that first step. I really like, Lisa, what you said there. There's so much conversation, so much you can do. What I heard was just start. Start simply. Start simple. An analogy came to my mind as you were saying that. You can't turn a ship that's not moving. If you haven't moved, you can't steer it. Start to move, and you can then start to steer it, which is something that I think resonates really well here. I've got a bonus question. EdTech vendors have a lot to answer for in this space. As I sort of mentioned earlier, there's so many available and so many more becoming available. And they do a really good job of providing things for free for teachers for a period of time, and then you need to pay for it. But also, we have a lot to answer for in terms of the professional development and what role we want to play in the AI part of EdTech landscape. My bonus question is, what's one or two questions that you advise our audience to ask vendors? What are the absolute important questions you should be asking vendors, either current vendors or future vendors in this space? Andrew, I'll start with you.
Oh, gosh. Probably
You
got a lot
mentioned a
more
couple
material.
before.
I've got to actually reduce down my thoughts now because there are so many questions you should be challenging vendors with. I think the key ones Where will our school's data be stored? That's critical. That was always my first question to vendors when they came to pitch for us. But one that you might start to ask as you are moving further down on this AI journey, and you hopefully start to move towards that idea of providing your own AI. Ask this question: does your platform allow us to plug in our own AI model so that data never leaves our environment? Because for Schoolbox, the answer would be yes. And as Grant said, schools are moving in this direction. So challenge vendors around that. Challenge them to utilize your structured, scaffolded AI within their services. And I've got more, but I'm gonna stick to my two.
We might send that out as part of the assets after this
Yeah,
webinar.
that would be good.
Lisa, can you add to any of those?
Yeah, I would say find out from the vendor, are you an education focused company or are you just a tech company? That's my question.
100%. 100%. Rita.
Mine would be maybe two. The first one being, what bias training have you done on the model itself? If they're deploying a model, what guardrails do they have around child safety and protection? I think that's really important. What testing or redefining or wrapping have they done around an AI? That's crucial. And the second one is, how close are you seeking acquisition? Because we've had a lot of our schools who've been disappointed by
Yes.
vendors at the last second. And that's been huge. I think and of course they may not tell you the truth, but at least you've asked the question.
Great question. I'll add one more to that. When we talk about where's your data stored, can you use what data? What data is actually feeding your model? Is it anonymized, or is private information leaking into that tool? And if so, that's a data breach. That's a very,
Is it
very
training the
serious
model?
problem.
Is
Sorry?
it training the model as well, Grant? Is it
Correct.
training the model? Yeah.
Is it training your model? Are we your product, or are you providing this as a service? Is this helping us? The more we use it, is it going to be more effective for us? That talks about your own AI model. It talks about being ring-fenced, your data being ring-fenced, and it talks more about the effectiveness of your customers' use of that rather than everyone. So. Team, thank you so much. It's been I'm sure we could talk for a long time. We have gone over time today. I really want to thank you for your insights and your understanding of this understanding of the market, understanding of this subject, and how you can serve and are serving your communities. I want this to continue. Obviously this topic will continue, but we are all available to you as the audience. Post this to connect with each of us if you have further questions that you want to take forward. But as we wrap this up, is there any other final thoughts from our panelist members? Final message, final thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
I would say I was at a session with Professor Rose Luckin on Friday, and I want to steal her saying, learn fast, act slow. AI is definitely not even at its peak yet. It's getting better and better. So don't be in such a rush to adopt. Be in a rush to learn. Learn, and act slow, because the minute you start acting, something will change. But just keep learning.
Love that, Lisa. Thank you. Any other final thoughts?
I'd like to add one about the kind of the role of education in all this. We've been besieged by information and change. I think now is the perfect time for us to share our voices back into the conversation. If we've learned anything about AI, it's that good writers can get the best results out of AI and that good thinkers can recognize good outputs. So guess what's going to remain important? The ability to read, to write, to think, to communicate, to imagine. All of those things are even more important now in an age of AI, not undermined by it. So I think that's crucial for me.
Fantastic. Andrew?
I think for me, I remain immensely positive about the impact of AI on education. I think it will be profound. I don't think it's a fad. And I think that by working together, we can make sure that we implement that for the betterment of our schools.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Really appreciate your time. We do not have any time for any more questions. As I said, we'll send that through later on. Thank you to our panel members, Lisa, Rita, Andrew. Thank you to Deborah, who kicked us off really well early on, and for everything that you all do for the education industry and educators. That concludes our session for today. I really hope there were some key takeaways that you gained out of this session, but don't let it stop. Keep connecting. As you can see, the contact details of our panelists are there for you to take. Connect on LinkedIn, connect in any way that you can and want, and let's continue the conversation. But for now, thank you, good evening, and good night.